Naomi Carter clutched her first-class ticket, her voice soft but steady. "Excuse me, this is my seat." Gregory Hale leaned back in the chair, eyes full of disdain. "I'm not giving up a seat for a child." The head flight attendant stepped forward, bent slightly and spoke in a lowered voice. "Miss, you'll need to move to economy." The air grew suddenly heavy. The sharp click of seatbelts echoed as several passengers half rose, straining to see better. Curious, irritated eyes turned toward Naomi. She drew in a deep breath, lips parting as she prepared to speak. When, before dawn, the glow of three computer screens lit up the small room. Naomi Carter sat at the desk, surrounded by sketches of a new learning system for blind children. She was only 12, yet her fingers moved across the keyboard and notepad like a seasoned researcher. One old habit lingered. Whenever stress rose, she twisted the scratched silver bracelet on her wrist, the last gift from her mother before she passed. Her father, Daniel, entered carrying 2 mugs of hot cocoa. He set one down and spoke in his steady voice. "You don't have to prove anything, Naomi. They need what you've built." Naomi nodded faintly, though her worried eyes betrayed her. Tomorrow's meeting with the investment fund would decide BrightPath's future. If it failed, millions of children waiting for this technology would be left behind, and the company might collapse. She folded the documents, then pulled the small backpack she had packed earlier. As her father zipped it closed, the phone screen lit up on the desk. A flight notification flashed. Status: delayed due to additional security checks. Naomi and Daniel exchanged a glance. A storm was gathering. Naomi stepped into first class, her small suitcase rolling evenly across the floor. She drew a steadying breath, clutching her ticket for seat 2A. Just as she slipped her backpack into the overhead bin, a man's voice rose from the window seat. "That's my spot. You've made a mistake." The middle-aged man in a dark suit lifted his chin, his eyes sharp with contempt. He flashed his platinum airline card as if it were proof of ownership. Naomi held out her ticket, her fingers trembling slightly but her voice clear. "Seat 2A is mine. It was booked last week." Gregory Hale gave a thin smile, drumming his fingers against the armrest like tapping on everyone's patience. "A kid doesn't need first class. Maybe your parents pulled strings. Or maybe the paperwork's not real." His words carried loud enough for 2 rows to hear. Someone muttered, "So young. Maybe there's been a mistake." Head flight attendant Helen Brooks stepped forward, ticket in hand. Her eyes hesitated on Naomi, then flicked toward Gregory. Instead of settling it directly, she whispered, "Why don't you sit in economy for now? We'll check after takeoff." Naomi froze. The ticket in her hand read plain as day. Seat 2A, first class. It was undeniable proof. Yet the attendant's words made Gregory's claim feel heavier. From the rear cabin, Daniel shot to his feet, his voice taut as wire. "This ticket is valid. We paid for first class. Don't insult your customers' trust." Heads turned. Some passengers frowned, others simply watched in silence. Gregory folded his arms and sighed, savoring the moment. "I've flown this route for 15 years, always in this seat. Don't turn the whole flight into a circus." His words struck like a blade against Naomi's fragile pride. She swallowed hard, ready to speak, when another voice cut through. "Excuse me, I heard everything." A refined woman with silver hair, Clara Whitmore, rose gracefully from across the aisle. She smiled gently at Naomi, then looked at Gregory. "If you need the space so badly, I'll switch. I'll move to another cabin." The cabin stirred. A few passengers clapped softly. Others exchanged puzzled looks. Gregory hesitated, then pounced on the offer. "That works. Thank you." He gathered his things with a smug air. Naomi started to thank her, but Clara leaned close. Her whisper meant only for the girl. "Never let them believe you don't belong. You're not the one who's wrong." Her hand rested lightly on Naomi's shoulder before she wheeled her bag away. As Clara headed toward economy, Naomi noticed passengers scribbling on their phones. Some even filmed discreetly. Gregory's insult and Clara's defense had become a public receipt, evidence unfolding in real time. Naomi nodded faintly, her lips trembling as if to speak, but her throat locked tight. Dozens of eyes stayed fixed on her, the air brittle with tension. And at that very moment, a new voice rang out. cold, decisive, and sharp. Naomi sank into the seat, breath unsteady after the clash with Gregory. The first-class cabin felt heavier than the air itself. Passengers busied themselves with books and screens, yet their eyes kept darting her way. Gregory crossed his arms again, his finger tapping against the armrest in a steady, grating beat, as if to remind her she didn't belong. Then from the back of the cabin, another woman's voice cut in, piercing, scornful. "What's a child doing in first class? These seats are for people who know how to use them." All eyes turned. A middle-aged woman in an elaborate dress and designer bag strode forward. She pointed directly at Naomi, her gaze icy. "I've flown this route for years and never seen this. First class isn't a playground." Naomi froze. Gregory's smirk widened, bolstered by the sudden ally. Murmurs rose. "Daddy's money. Probably fake papers." A young passenger raised his phone. The red word "recording" glowed in the corner of the screen, its reflection telling Naomi every cruel word was now captured. Daniel moved quickly from the rear, his voice strained but firm. "This seat was purchased legally. Here's the confirmation." He held out his phone. On the screen, the email blazed clear. "Naomi Carter, Seat 2A, First Class." Gregory barked a dry laugh, sharp as a knife. "Anyone can fake an email. Who says that's not a trick?" Eyes around the cabin shifted, some nodding toward Gregory, others hesitating in silence. Attendant Helen faltered, glancing between Naomi and Gregory. "Maybe she should sit in economy for now until we verify." Naomi felt her strength drain. If she moved, she'd lose every shred of respect here and cast doubt over tomorrow's meeting. She bit down hard, holding back tears. Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You're not moving. The ticket says it plain. No one has the right to take it away." The air grew thick, heavy as a storm about to break. Gregory leaned back, looking smug. The well-dressed woman still blocked the aisle, her eyes glinting with cruel satisfaction. Whispers swelled louder, like a crowded courtroom right there in first class. Naomi's eyes darted for a way out. Then she caught a flash of green from Gregory's phone on the tray. He had tapped something quickly, the screen flaring before he flipped it face down. Naomi's chest tightened, her pulse racing. Whatever he had just set in motion felt more dangerous than a seat dispute. She straightened, hands trembling, though her eyes fought to stay strong. The cabin pressed in on her, every stare like a needle. Gregory held the seat, the elegant woman blocked the aisle, and Helen, the attendant, leaned visibly toward the loyal customer's side. It was as if the whole cabin wanted to shove Naomi out. At that moment, Daniel came forward from the rear cabin. He lifted his phone, voice firm. "This is the online receipt with the full booking code. Naomi Carter, Seat 2A. The screen glowed, the confirmation clear. Passengers stirred, and one man behind spoke up. "I can see it." "The girl's ticket is valid." Helen hesitated, eyes fixed on the phone. For a fleeting second, Naomi sensed a rare opening, a chance to prove the truth. But Gregory scoffed, his tone dripping with contempt. "A screenshot proves nothing. Anyone can doctor that. I need real evidence." The words cut through like cold water, stirring doubt again. The elegant woman nodded firmly. "Exactly. Paper printouts are what count." The chance slipped away. Naomi's throat locked, her nails pressing into her palms. The cabin buzzed like a lopsided trial. Daniel fought to keep steady, but the strain showed in his voice. "You have no right to humiliate my daughter in front of everyone." Gregory crossed his arms, raising his voice. "I have every right. I'm a loyal customer. I've done plenty for this airline. But you and that girl, I doubt all of it." The fire spread. Helen looked around, weighing the crowd, then turned back to Naomi. "Miss, I'm afraid you'll still need to move until we can verify further." Naomi bit her lip, starting to rise. Just then, a sharp sound rang out. All heads turned toward a young man by the window. He held his phone high. "I've got proof," he said clearly. "I've recorded everything." "Everyone heard this man," he pointed straight at Gregory, "lie outright about Seat 2A being his. The video shows the exact time, and the girl's voice offering her ticket is clear." The cabin erupted. Some passengers stood to see the screen. Helen faltered, her face shifting. Naomi felt the faint spark of hope, one fragile chance to reclaim her dignity, but Gregory cut in quickly. Who believes a sneaky phone recording? That could be edited. His voice drowned the flicker of support, dragging Naomi back to the edge of defeat. Her heartbeat thundered. Victory felt close enough to touch, yet kept slipping away. No one made the final call. The truth hung suspended, lost in the rising tide of whispers. Then from the back row, a low female voice rang out, steady and clear. If there's still doubt, call the girl's father forward. I know him. The cabin fell silent. Every head turned toward the speaker. Naomi froze, her heart lurching. The woman who had spoken was Clara Whitmore, the very same who had surrendered her seat to Gregory. Naomi froze when Clara spoke. The silver-haired woman who had quietly surrendered her seat earlier now declared she knew her father. Every eye locked on Daniel, standing close to his daughter, his shoulders tight. Clara moved forward, each step slow but steady. Daniel Carter, I'm not mistaken. You attended a technical conference in Chicago. I still have the record. She pulled an old plastic badge from her purse, the back marked with his name and date. I kept this as proof of the research you presented. Whispers rippled through the cabin. Gregory stiffened, his smug smile gone. Helen, the head attendant, bent to examine the badge. This really is from the 2016 technical conference. It has Daniel Carter's name. Naomi lifted her head, her eyes shining. At last, real evidence had appeared, proof no one could deny. Gregory stammered, that could still be faked. But his voice lacked weight, as if even he didn't believe himself. Clara's gaze cut into him, her tone like ice. If you doubt it, call for verification right now. I also kept the email exchanges with Daniel. She opened her tablet, scrolling to an old inbox. On screen, the thread about an engine design Daniel had once shared appeared, complete with dates and electronic signatures. The murmurs shifted. A few passengers nodded, their eyes softening toward Naomi. A value shift unfolded before them, from humiliation to recognition. Daniel's hand rested on his daughter's shoulder. His voice was calm. I don't need to prove who I am. What matters is this ticket is valid, and my daughter has every right to sit here. He held up his phone again. The QR code from the airline glowed as an attendant scanned it. The device beeped, and green text appeared. Valid, seat 2A. First class fell into heavy silence. Naomi felt her throat loosen, her breath ragged but her eyes alight. A small chance, but enough to claim her place. Helen drew a deep breath, her voice unsteady. It appears seat 2A truly belongs to her. The words landed like a blow to Gregory's pride. He shot to his feet, furious. This is an outrage. I'll sue the airline. A child can't sit at the same level as me. Before his words faded, a young man across the cabin stood. He raised his phone high. I recorded everything. He not only claimed the wrong seat, but insulted this girl in front of everyone. Here's direct proof. He pressed play. Gregory's mocking voice filled the cabin. A kid doesn't need first class. The cabin fell silent. The video was a receipt no one could deny. Naomi watched faces shift, some flushed with shame for joining in. Others lowered their eyes. In that moment, she was no longer the child under suspicion. She was the witness to injustice laid bare. Gregory's face paled, his words stumbling. I only wanted my seat. I meant no harm. Clara narrowed her eyes. No harm? You humiliated a child in front of everyone. Do you think an apology is enough? The air thickened. No one dared interrupt. Naomi turned to her father. Daniel gave a quiet nod, urging her to hold her dignity. She drew a breath, her voice trembling yet firm. I don't need an apology. I only want the same respect as every passenger. Scattered claps rose from the back, slowly spreading. A few passengers smiled, some nodded. The value shift was clear. Naomi had moved from powerless to defended. But just as the atmosphere tilted in her favor, the overhead speaker crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, due to a special security alert, this flight will return to the airport for further checks. The cabin froze. Daniel's eyes locked on Gregory, suspicion flickering. Naomi saw him slip his phone face down, his face drained of color. And in that heavy pause, Clara delivered a chilling line that froze the cabin. Someone just reported this girl isn't who we think she is. The announcement had barely ended when passengers were told to leave the cabin and gather in the security lounge. A wide hall opened before them, washed in the cold glow of fluorescent lights. Rows of plastic chairs lined the space. The shuffle of shoes, the clatter of rolling bags, and a rising wave of restless voices filled the air. It was no longer about one seat in first class. Every passenger was now a witness. At the front, a row of black uniformed security officers stood firm. Gregory Hale strode out first, his suit still crisp, his face full of pride. He pointed straight at Naomi, his voice ringing across the hall. "It's that girl. She took the wrong seat, and now you see, the plane turned back because of her. We're all delayed because of a scam." The words boomed through the room. Faces tightened. Some passengers shook their heads in frustration. Whispers flared. "Unbelievable! A child causing this mess?" Naomi sat hunched in a chair, her hands gripping her backpack straps. The harsh white light made her face even paler. Daniel stepped forward, ready to speak, but Gregory cut him off, voice like fire. "You still dare defend her? Show real documents or admit you both committed fraud." He raised his phone high, screen lit with his contact list, then snapped it face down as if hiding something. Naomi drew a shaky breath and tried to speak. "I have a valid ticket. I have the email confirmation." She held up her phone, the screen glowing, but her voice was too small, drowned in the noise. From behind came mocking laughter. "Anyone can fake an email. A 12-year-old claiming to be a CEO? Absurd." The words landed like hammers. Naomi's legs trembled, her breath catching. She forced herself to stand, her voice breaking but steady. "I didn't deceive anyone. My technology has already helped thousands of children learn better." Gregory's voice surged over hers, sharp and deliberate. "See? Sounds like a performance. Do you believe it? A child running $1 billion company? Ridiculous." Laughter rippled from one corner. Humiliation crashed down, and Naomi wished she could sink into the floor. Daniel stepped in front of her, shielding her, his voice cutting. "That's enough. She deserves respect." But a security officer leaned in, speaking firmly. "Sir, please cooperate. We need to conduct further checks." Naomi looked up, her eyes catching shards of light. She had fought back, but her voice was smothered under the weight of suspicion. It felt like a dead end. Then, slicing through the noise, a woman's voice rang out, warm, steady, commanding. "I have proof." Every head turned. Clara Whitmore stood tall among the rows of chairs, her tablet glowing in her hands. On the screen, an old email thread was open, Daniel Carter's name plain at the top. The blue light reflected across her face, freezing the room in silence. Naomi held her breath, her heart pounding. Gregory's grip on his phone loosened, his posture faltering. For one suspended moment, the hall fell into heavy stillness, waiting for what would come next. The lounge held its breath as Clara raised her tablet high. The screen's glow lit her face, displaying the preserved email exchange between her and Daniel Carter, complete with a verified conference signature from years ago. Living proof stood before hundreds of eyes. Helen, the head attendant, took the tablet and read aloud, her voice trembling but clear. "Sender, Daniel Carter. Subject, Educational Engine Design. Date, authenticated." Her words dropped into the thick silence of the hall. Gregory stepped back half a pace, gripping his phone. He forced a thin smile. "An old email proves nothing. That girl still doesn't belong here." Naomi rose to her feet. For the first time that morning, her voice rang steady and firm. "Doesn't belong? My name is on the ticket." The scanner confirmed my seat. "Now a witness, and these emails confirm who my father is. Every piece is real. What about you?" She stepped forward, her eyes locked on Gregory. "Do you have a valid ticket? Any proof that seat belongs to you?" Gregory faltered. Whispers swept across the room. "He's never shown his ticket. It's been bullying from the start." A young passenger jumped up, phone raised. "I recorded everything. Listen, he said himself he always sits there because of his status, not because he had a ticket." The recording played, Gregory's voice echoing. I've flown this route 15 years, always in this seat. Don't turn the flight into a circus. The sound hit like a hammer. The lounge erupted, then fell into dead silence. Dozens of eyes turned on Gregory. The elegant woman from earlier bowed her head, silent now. As the recording finished, another man rose from the back, his voice firm. That's right, I heard it too. That seat was never his. A young mother holding her child added, this girl has every right to be here. We all saw it. Support spread like a wave, cornering Gregory. The stark white light reflected off Naomi's face, making her the center of the room. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. You didn't just try to take my seat. You tried to take the respect every child deserves. You delayed all of us because of your arrogance. And now everyone sees the truth. Daniel rested a hand on her shoulder, letting her stand alone beneath hundreds of eyes. The mood shifted. Applause began hesitantly, then grew louder. Several passengers moved closer, nodding toward Naomi and her father. Gregory stammered, I only wanted fairness. But his voice shook, stripped of authority. Clara's eyes locked on him, her words crisp. Fairness isn't trampling others. Fairness is the truth everyone here just witnessed. The hall erupted again in applause. Naomi's legs felt stronger than ever. Her eyes burned bright, catching the white glow from the ceiling. The crowd hushed, waiting for her next words. What matters isn't age or appearance. What matters is the value you bring. I may look small to you, but thousands of children have found joy in learning because of the technology I built. That's why I'm here, rightfully, like anyone else. The hall thundered like breaking waves. The scornful whispers from earlier had transformed into clapping voices of support. Daniel squeezed her shoulder gently, pride shining in his eyes. Just as Naomi prepared to finish, she caught an unfamiliar gaze from the crowd. A man in a dark suit stepped forward, silent until now. In his hand was a high-level security badge. Naomi froze. Words caught in her throat as her heart sank. The air tightened once more, the entire hall waiting to hear what this newcomer would say. The airport lounge glowed under harsh white lights, but the mood had shifted. The man in the dark suit stepped forward, holding up his high-level federal security badge for all to see. His voice was calm, steady. I'm with Federal Passenger Security. All data has been cross-checked. Naomi's ticket is fully valid, with no errors. A ripple of noise swept through, then fell into utter silence. Every eye turned toward Naomi, small but standing tall at the center. Gregory dropped his head, his trembling hand no longer gripping his phone. The elegant woman shrank back, her face burning red. Daniel gave the officer a nod of thanks and placed a steady hand on his daughter's shoulder. Naomi didn't speak, but her eyes did. She knew she had just crossed a threshold no child should ever face: doubt, public humiliation, and had stood her ground. Gregory's shoes echoed on the tiled floor as he slowly approached. When he stopped in front of Naomi, he paused a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he sank to one knee. The hall erupted in gasps. I'm sorry, he said, his voice broken, stripped of arrogance. I was wrong. Wrong for assuming authority I didn't have. Wrong for dismissing a child. I let pride become a weapon that hurt others. Naomi stared at him in silence. The room felt frozen. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out the scratched silver bracelet, her mother's keepsake. She turned it over in her hand so he could see. Do you see this? It's old, scratched, but it's precious because of what it represents. Respect is the same. When it's damaged, an apology is the only way to preserve its worth. Gregory bowed his head lower, eyes wet. The crowd watched in reverent quiet. Justice wasn't about winners and losers. It was about someone choosing to face their fault. Clara Whitmore stepped forward and handed Naomi a slim folder. I kept these letters and data for years, but now you need them more than I do. Don't let anyone question what you've built. Naomi accepted it, her small hands trembling. It wasn't just paper. It was trust passed on. Helen, the head attendant, bent deeply before father and daughter. I apologize for my hasty judgment. We'll file a full report of what happened. Her words made several passengers nod in agreement. A few came closer, gently touching Naomi's shoulder in silent support. Even the elegant woman rose, her voice breaking with shame. I, I was wrong to join in. Please forgive me. Naomi gave her a faint smile without reproach. What matters is that from now on, you never judge someone by appearances. The tension lifted, replaced by warmth spreading through the hall. Daniel squeezed his daughter's shoulder, whispering, "You did it. You didn't just keep your seat. You kept your dignity." Naomi smiled, small but shining, her eyes glistening. Clara watched with quiet pride. The officer closed his notebook, announcing, "The matter is settled. Passenger Carter is fully cleared. We can resume our journey." Applause rose, filling the lounge. Naomi bowed her head in thanks. This time the clapping wasn't pity, it was recognition. In that moment, Gregory drew a crumpled ticket from his pocket. Not first class, but economy. He placed it into Naomi's hand. "This is mine. I hid it out of shame, but I don't need to anymore." Naomi looked at it, then pressed it back into his palm. "You should keep it. No one can take away the right to sit in your own seat, but don't ever take what belongs to someone else again." Gregory lowered his head, tears brimming. The crowd remained silent, many wiping their own eyes. When the boarding call echoed, Naomi pulled her backpack close and walked with her father. Every gaze followed, not with doubt now, but with admiration. Clara placed a hand over her heart and smiled. The elegant woman sank into her seat, lost in her own reflection. Gregory walked quietly behind, his pride gone. At the gate, Naomi turned back and spoke just loud enough to carry. "Justice isn't about the seat you hold. It's about how we treat one another." The hall stilled, then thundered with one final round of applause. The story closed with Naomi and Daniel climbing the boarding stairs, their shadows stretching long in the late sun. A warm voiceover carried the final note. "Have you ever witnessed injustice in plain sight? What would you do if you were in Naomi's place? Share your thoughts below. And if this story touched you, join us for more journeys of justice and dignity." The last light glinted off Naomi's silver bracelet, catching for a brief, brilliant moment. The story closed, leaving a hush of emotion that lingered long after.